As we preview the champions from the East and the West, we also need to break down this debate. Finally, we will settle who had the best buzzer beater in the bubble before lastly, we discuss the growing need for a head coach in the NBA and the massive bomb that was dropped on Monday night as the opportunities to succeed in this league as a head coach is growing all of the time. So here to break down everything is the hoop genius, the NBA Twitch connoisseur, as I love to call him, Mr. Mo Moonsey. The Le Mans starting forward who dominates with 17-5-5 in week one of the league, Ovie Soko, and three-time NBA champion who knows all about these big moments in the NBA finals, Mr. BJ Armstrong. Gentlemen, what's good?
What's good? What's good, man? Great to be here. I want to hear more about that 17-5-5. I want to hear about that.
Oh, no. We talking NBA. We talking NBA today.
That's how you dominate. That's how you dominate from the beginning. But gentlemen, let's catch the fans up with some of the latest news. And I want to start with some positive news because let's bring everybody up to date with an almost forgotten team in the NBA. And a team that's probably going to have a lot to say next season in the Golden State Warriors. So, as Eminem would say, guess who's back? Earlier this week, Klay Thompson trained for the first time with his Golden State Warriors teammates after suffering an ACL injury in the 2019 NBA Finals. Look, they're going to be an incredible force next year. We already know this. Everything in terms of the draft picks, Klay and Steph back together. But BJ, I want to know from you, how big of a force can the Warriors actually be?
Well, you know, I always get concerned when players come back from major injuries. And we must not forget that a guard's really... You know, one of the greatest assets that a guard has is the speed and quickness. And you never know how a guard like Klay Thompson is going to react physically to coming back from that injury. It's going to take some time. So, but I think on paper, it sounds great. You know, with Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, you have Draymond Green. And of course, they have the number 2 pick coming in this year's draft. So, you know, I would proceed with caution just because you never know how the players are going to react once you come back. And then we must remember also that this is going to be another kind of unusual year. We're not starting in the traditional way that we normally start. We'll probably start sometime in January, possibly February, and then try to figure out, you know, how to play these games in a condensed amount of time. And you just never know how that knee is going to react. So, but I do like the fact that he's healthy. I like the fact that he's playing, he's participating in live action, and but it certainly sounds good. But once again, you know, the players have to go out there and perform on the court. And, you know, if the Lakers win and other teams, there's going to be a lot of competition out there in the Western Conference, I should say.
Well, BJ makes some great points there because the West is heating up nicely. You have Denver, both of the LA teams. The Rockets are going to want to get better next year as well. All expected to be in the mix. But how strong can this Warriors team as their stars start to return for next year?
Hey, man, I feel like with watching this bubble and what's gone on and some excellent performances from guys like Dame and whoever else, a lot of people have forgotten about not just Klay Thompson, but the other man in Golden State, the fellow Splash brother in Stephen Curry, and just how great he is when he's on the basketball court. So I feel like the Warriors, you know, they've sat back this year. They've watched everyone else throw their hats in the ring to try and become contenders. But they know they got the talent in those two guys, the best backcourt of all time. A lot of people would say. We don't need to get into that debate right now. But, you know, they've got the talent. They've also got that number 2 pick. They could do a lot of things with that. They could pick a young guy. They could pick someone like Wiseman to add a rim protector to that squad that they need. Or, you know, they could package him with Andrew Wiggins potentially and bring in another high-quality player to join that squad. So either way, the Warriors are going to be back with a vengeance next year. And I feel like a lot of people are going to regret forgetting about them or somewhat disrespecting them just because they're not around this time in the bubble.
Ovie, absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? And the return of Klay Thompson immediately elevates the Warriors back up to that championship contention. But just remind everybody of how elite Klay is. Regardless of the injury or not, we're still talking about one of the best two-way players in the league, correct?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, he's top 3, in my opinion. When you're talking about someone who can defend like he can, you can put him on your best perimeter offensive player. And then, you know, on the other side of the court, he's going to score in bunches, and he can put the opposing defense under so much pressure. And one thing I do like about how Klay plays, I think we're going to have to see how quickly he'll be able to get back on the defensive side of the ball. But as far as offensively, he's not a guy that necessarily needs the ball in his hands all the time, or, he's necessarily trying to break guys down off the dribble. He's very decisive. He makes very quick decisions. He's a very intelligent player, which allows him to basically just read the game and make the game easier. So I think he'll be able to fit in a lot quicker on offense. But defensively, I think we'll have to see, take him a little bit longer to get back to what we're used to seeing from him.
It could be some trips back to the Bays for the finals coming up very, very soon. But look, I just want to switch gears with you gentlemen very quickly because as was announced last week, Billy Donovan was named the new head coach of the Chicago Bulls after 5 seasons in OKC. He'll join on a multi-year contract and obviously taking over from Jim Boland's role. Donovan, look, we know he's well respected for his coaching and sort of the national championships in Florida, the postseason performances in OKC. But it had me thinking, and I want to have a little bit of fun with you guys, in terms of the other vacancies around the league, because there's now currently 6 head coaching positions that are available. And I want to discuss a few of them with each of you so that you can kind of give the fans sort of the options that's out there and some of the individual fans will understand what's happening with their franchises. So Mo, let's start with you. And I want to start with the Pelicans because, look, we could list it. The great young core, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram. But the report suggests that Ty Lue is the front runner. Some of the other candidates I want you to consider when you're making your suggestions is Wes Unseld Jr., the 5-year assistant coach down in Denver. We know him from his time at the Magic as well. He was brilliant down there. I will tell you that for free. And Chris Quinn, of course, who's still in the bubble right now, of course, is the Heat's assistant coach under Spoelstra. And he's been sort of instrumental in the direction and the development of Bam, Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero. So when you hear about sort of Chris Quinn, you hear about Wes, you hear about Ty Lue as you're expecting, what do you think about those candidates from the Pelicans' perspective? And are you expecting maybe them to go in that direction or maybe another one?
Well, the reason why Ty Lue's name is coming up because he has a pre-existing relationship with general manager David Griffin, who was, of course, in charge of the Cavaliers when Ty Lue took over and won that championship with them. He also has a pre-existing relationship with Mike D'Antoni, which is a name he didn't mention, because of his days as an executive with the Phoenix Suns when Mike D'Antoni was coaching there. Chris Quinn has done an absolutely amazing job in terms of the player development, like you mentioned, in Miami. But for me, if I'm in charge in New Orleans, I'm really looking at Wes Unseld Jr. for this job. I was surprised that the Bulls didn't go with him because, their vice president of basketball operations has a pre-existing relationship with Wes. But there are 3 reasons why I would like him to be the coach of the New Orleans Pelicans. First of all, the Pelicans, they've got all of these young, talented players. But the area that they lacked the most this season, from what I've seen, was the defensive end. And, Wes has done an excellent job orchestrating and coordinating the defense for this Denver Nuggets team, who, on paper, and when we talk about them, we act like they're not a good defensive team because they've got the Jokic and they've got the Jamal Murray. But you don't get to the Western Conference Finals by being a bad defensive team. When you look at the advanced numbers, their defense stacks up pretty well. Out of all the teams after the bubble, they had a better net rating than the Celtics and the Lakers. Only the Miami Heat had a better net rating than them. So the first reason being the defensive edge that he'd bring. Second reason would be, his age. He's got 15 years of coaching experience in the league, but he's only 8 years older than JJ Redick. So, he's young enough to connect to the players in that locker room, but he's also established enough and experienced enough to command a certain level of respect. And then the third reason is the player development side of things. You've seen what a great job the Nuggets have done with guys like Nikola Jokic. He wasn't projected to be this great. Jamal Murray's come a long way. We've even seen this season Michael Porter Jr. develop his game. So we've seen great jobs of player development with him. And I feel like with this young New Orleans franchise, Wes Unseld Jr. would be the candidate that I go for.
We spoke about the potential of this New Orleans job and how it has such great upside. But I want to switch teams because we could talk about New Orleans all day. So BJ, I'd like you to look at the 76ers. Look, we know they're 2 superstars, right. Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, but swept in the playoffs this season. Look, there's talks about whether or not these 2 franchise faces can actually play together. So some of the candidates that's for this role, I've seen Ty Lue again, another front runner. Yes. But Mike D'Antoni is in the cut as well, obviously fresh of his role in Houston. How do you feel about some of the decisions that Elton Brand's got to do in this offseason?
Well, it's going to be very interesting when you look at this team, the Philadelphia 76ers, what they're going to decide to do. I think the names, the list of candidates are terrific. You mentioned, too, Mike D'Antoni, who is an excellent name, Ty Lue, who are veteran coaches. He is a reigning champion in the NBA with his time there in Cleveland. But when I look at this team, I always look at the players and what is this team telling me? Well, one, this team has a huge gap in one of their team elements, and that's leadership. Who is the guy on this team? Is this a team that will be built around Joel Embiid as its key offensive figure, or are we going to look at Ben Simmons and his versatility, what he brings? If I'm the Philadelphia 76ers, I want to bring in leadership. I want to bring in a coach who's young, who understands the mentality of today's player, and who can connect with one and potentially both of these guys. And my choice for this would be Chauncey Billups. I think he's young enough. I think what he did as a former player in this league, he's provided excellent leadership. And I think he is now primed to come in and step in, because this is going to be a situation there in Philadelphia where you want to connect to these players. You want to connect to your best players. I think Chauncey Billups is equipped to do that. I think in this new NBA, he will have the ability to do what is necessary to go out there and play. And not only play, I think other players will want to play with him, understanding the position as a former guard and what he's going to bring. So that would be my pick if I were the Philadelphia 76ers. I want to have new blood. I want to have a new attitude. And then if it doesn't work, you know what? He's young enough to go through the rebuild. But more importantly, he's young enough to start over, do whatever it is they're trying to do up there in Philadelphia. But that's what I would go if I were the Philadelphia 76ers.
Finally, Ovie, I want you to attack what's probably going to be one of the more attractive jobs in this free market, or this off-season, as they say, the Houston Rockets. Look, it's going to be important for any head coach to come in there and want to work and be able to work with both Russ and James. So the report for the major candidates right now is Sam Cassell, well-liked without the league. Look, assistant coach right now with the LA Clippers. Jeff Van Gundy, who hasn't actually coached in 13 years, but everyone still knows has his heartbeat in the sport. Obviously, he's well known for his broadcasting work. And another surprise one, Chris Finch, well-respected assistant coach down there in New Orleans, doing great things as well. And of course, he coached their G League to a championship back in 2010. So I ask you, it looks like culture is a massive part of the decisions that Daryl Morey is going to make in this offseason. So which direction would you go in?
I think they're all great names. They're all great proposals. I think now, just with the recent news of Doc Rivers, I think he's obviously going to be another option for those guys. But for me, I'll probably go Jeff. I'll go with Jeff Van Gundy, because he's got experience playing on a winning team. Maybe not a championship, winning an NBA title, but he's been to the conference finals. He's been an assistant coach on conference championship winning teams. And I think anytime you've just been around a culture in the NBA that's won anything, that's something that you can take and build from, because I think those are special teams. It takes incredibly special teams with incredible talent to win an NBA championship, but even to win a conference championship in the NBA, it takes, a certain kind of culture and it takes a certain environment. So having been in that environment multiple times, I think he's probably the better guy for the job. I think whoever does take the job, there's going to be a lot more changes or a couple more changes that's going to need to happen on that Rockets roster, because I'm not quite sure this complete small ball idea is going to fly. I think it was it was an experiment that as we saw once it got to playoff time, I just don't think it's, you can't win a championship that way. Not in the NBA, not with a amount of talented guys with size that there are playing in the NBA today. But yeah, I'll go with Jeff, man.
Producer Joe, make sure you clip these up, because these need to be put into the archive. So when those decisions are made, I want to see how close the predictions from our Heatcheck family was to the actual decisions that actually happen in real life. But look, you spoke about one person that was really important there, and that was Doc Rivers, who is now the hottest free agent out there. And look, we're going to have to dive into hot or not, because a big bomb was dropped on Monday. Gentlemen, when Woj drops a bomb, sometimes just take a deep breath. But bombs don't get much bigger than this. Doc Rivers' era with the Los Angeles Clippers is over. As confirmed on Monday, they have parted ways. Whew, let's take a deep breath, yeah? Because he's led this team to 6 of those 7 seasons in the postseason most recently. Look, they never made it out the second round. We already know this, but I'm a big fan of Doc Rivers. Not only being a black head coach, but his excellence is Orlando, in Boston, Mo, and yes, of course, in LA. So I'm coming to you, Mo, first of all. I can't help but think that splitting with Doc Rivers isn't enough, and the Clippers need to actually change some huge personnel in that locker room as well.
Well, first of all, before I get into the changes that the Clippers need to make, the Clippers, once again, you guys know, they're holding another L. Do you know why this L is so monumental? Because they didn't just hire Doc Rivers. We've just spoken about the coaches that teams want to hire. They traded 2 first-round picks for Doc Rivers just to get him on their team. Doc Rivers said, look, I don't want to be in Boston anymore. I want to be competing on a championship caliber team. But ever since then, he ain't ever made a conference finals. The Celtics have been taking their young guys, 3 conference finals in 4 years. So, first of all, Doc Rivers, sad to see you leave Boston, but, you know, it's funny how things work out in the end. But getting on to the Clippers now and the players that they need to acquire or move or trade. For me, when you're looking at this Clippers roster, the thing that jumped out to me from watching that Denver Nuggets series is they really are lacking a solid defensive big man. Montrezl Harrell just simply didn't cut it. You know, first of all, Montrezl is a big man, but he's like the same height as Luka Doncic. So he's a free agent this summer. Some of his people have told me that he wants to be playing with the Lakers. I don't know what the salary situation is going to be saying there, but that's one to keep an eye on. I personally, you know, I don't see him sticking with the Clippers. I feel like they need to upgrade and get someone with more of a defensive presence because Zubac's is solid, but again, you need something better, especially when you're going up against guys like Jokic, Porzingis, and other big men that are now Anthony Davis in the Western Conference. So that's one area they need to upgrade. The second area they need to make a move is I feel like it's time to trade Lou Williams. He's got $8 million on an expiring contract, but what it is with Lou Williams, every year his numbers go down massively in the playoffs, and he's a liability on defense. He's an absolute liability on defense. If they had not choked and made it to the conference finals to face the Lakers, you see the way that LeBron James was hunting out Jamal Murray on those switches off the high pick and roll? He would have been feasting on Lou Will. Lou Will would have been unplayable because as soon as LeBron got that switch, it would have been a bucket, barbecue chicken every time down. With those kind of guys on your roster, you know, we saw a similar thing with Kemba Walker. Like, you know, your guards now can't just score, especially in a league on a team where you've got wing guys that are so capable of scoring. You know, you've got to have a guard that's solid defensively, but at the same time, you also have to be able to make shots. So Patrick Beverley is on the other end of the scale to Lou Williams because he doesn't really make any shots, but he can play the defense. So I feel like they need to upgrade, whether it's a starter or a guard coming off the bench. They need to make an upgrade there. You know, they've got Jermichael Green and Marcus Morris, that are looking for new deals. I feel like they should retain one of those two guys just for that depth on the wing. I feel like with Green, they should have kept him getting some of those minutes because he played really well whilst Trez was out as a stretch 5 and playing that 5-out small ball. And then he lost a lot of minutes when Trez came back in. I feel like he might be a nice piece to maintain on the roster. But, you know, there are a lot of options out there. No huge names, but there's guys like Dragic, there's guys like Ibaka, guys like Jay Crowder, guys like Aaron Baines. That would all be solid additions to this Clippers team because for them, this is the biggest part, the most important part, is they didn't lock up Kawhi for the long term. And Paul George isn't locked in for the long term. They've both now, remaining on their deals, got 1+1, which means they've got 1 year left with the Clippers, and then they have a player option. So they can either opt into their contracts or become free agents in that summer of 2021 where teams are clearing the cap space for. So for the Clippers, they're going into this next season, it's championship or bust. They need to make the moves that put them up there above the Lakers, above everyone else. They need to be the best of the best because they can't afford to choke once again in the playoffs.
Ovie, a lot of people tipped the Clippers this year to be the favourites. They made a major splash last season, the off-season, signing that free agent Kawhi Leonard, and then the package deal that we saw to bring in Paul George. Surely they made enough moves last year, people would say. But I ask you, does firing Doc Rivers, is that enough at this moment in time?
It's not enough. I feel like we saw once we got to the playoffs, you know, I feel like they had a strength, or they have a strength, when you have someone like Montrezl Harrell, but they do need probably a 5 with more size. Do you know what I mean? He wasn't as effective as he was in, you know, the regular season in the playoffs. And I feel like now, because he didn't necessarily perform great in the playoffs, they need to try and bring him back. You know, you definitely don't want to lose a piece that I feel like is so versatile on defense, on offense. He can do so many things. You don't necessarily want to lose him, but if you can get him for a better price because of how he ended the season, and then try and bring in, a more solid sort of role player at the 5, someone who can, help them block shots, just more of a presence in the paint. I feel like that's something that they need big time. And then they need a true point guard. Pat Bev, great. The guy plays defense. He plays his heart out. But I feel like when he's out there, it puts too much pressure on guys like Paul George. It puts too much pressure on Kawhi. They have to do way too much playmaking. They have to have the ball in their hands way more than they really should. I feel like that's something that worked well with Kawhi when he was up in Toronto. He had the 2 guards, Van Fleet, and then he had Kyle Lowry. He had both those guys who were able to control the game. Kyle Lowry does a great job. He's a great leader, and he knows time, score, the pace of the game so well. So it allows Kawhi to be aggressive, to make plays, to do other things without having to control the game. I feel like when Pat Bev's out there, he speeds up the other team on defense. He messes stuff up. He gets the other team all acting crazy. But on offense, he doesn't know how to sort of flip the switch and then become calm and collected and control how everything, put guys where they need to be. And they really struggle, especially in the playoffs. You need that sort of primary ball handler that's going to always have your team clicking on all cylinders. So I would definitely say, a point guard and, another big to complement Montrez. Because Zubek, I mean, he's a great big, but he's young, but he's not taking up too much salary cap space. So, I feel like that's someone who they're going to need to keep to continue to grow. But Montrez definitely, you need a different dynamic out there.
BJ, I feel like this has almost become like a coach's special. Like we're literally just focusing on all the coaches that's around the league. But I know about how high you are on Doc and sort of the relationship as well. So I need to understand from your perspective. When superstars are in this league, people don't understand how much they're considered in these sort of processes. So give us the communication from that aspect. And also tell us if you feel like the Clippers have made the right move in removing Doc Rivers at this moment.
Well, when I look at the coach, especially in today's game, the one thing that I look at, and, I look at a coach like Coach Spo right now, or I look at, Steve Kerr, or I look at, Greg Popovich, so forth and so on. I always look for leadership. And when I look at someone who can provide the leadership, in particular today's game, because of the youth, the way the game is played, and in this situation here, Doc Rivers, this was a situation, in my opinion, in the bubble and all the things that have especially transpired this season, Doc Rivers is the perfect coach. He is, some of this heartfelt speeches that he gave in the bubble, whether you were a basketball fan or not, he has a true understanding and leadership qualities that you have to admire, whether you respect him or like him. He gets it. Now, in saying all of that, if the Clippers are going to fire a Doc Rivers like they did, then I hopefully that they have someone in mind that is of the same quality or better than the previous coach, because you just don't find Doc Rivers floating around. This is a well-seasoned, championship quality coach that you have. I'm looking at this situation going, okay, he was fired. But when I looked at the players and the way they performed down in the bubble, it was clear to me that the players did not perform when the bright lights were shining the brightest. They had leads. They were giving a game plan where they were up in not one, not two, but all of the games that they lost when they were up 3-1. They lost because the players did not perform. So the players have to take some responsibility to this. Whether we want to say it's Montrezl Harrell, whether we want to say it's the point guard or what have you, the fact remains is that these players had an opportunity to perform when it was their time to perform. And that's on the players. That's not on the coach. No coach is going to go out there and score, and we can blame whoever we want to blame here. The players had an opportunity. The players, this team, the LA Clippers, who I've been watching all year, I felt very strongly about the following. I thought they were the team to beat this year. I really did. because they could defend, they have versatility, so forth and so on. No team is perfect. But the thing that always concerned me as a person watching from afar was the following. They were never healthy the entire season. They never came together and put together a string, a month, a week, 2 weeks where they were all together playing collectively as a group. It was always, they were piecemealing the whole thing. You know, Paul George was out, Lou Williams missing time when he came back in the bubble, Montrez missing time, you know, load management, so forth and so on. We got a trade here. We're trying to integrate, you know, one of the more twins to come in. So I just felt this year was a very difficult season. And then it was all said and done, it all fell on Doc Rivers' shoulder, which is fine because he is terrific. He will land, you know, because he will be highly sought after as a coach. But, and again, looking at it, I think the players have to figure out what it is that they have to do. You know, their leader, Patrick Beverley, he missed some significant time going down the stretch this year. So it was just one of those seasons where injuries, as we know, are part of the game. But overall, I thought they piecemealed it together as best they could. But clearly, there are some within the organization felt that this team underachieved. And being in this league, it's very difficult to win and advance, let alone win a championship when you don't have your health and you're out there every single day to compete as a group.
BJ, the Clippers, I get what you're saying about the injuries and the players not getting it done, which is completely right for this year. But, you know, Doc Rivers, as much as I respect him as a great man that he is and the great leader that he is and all the things he says about what goes on in society is absolutely fantastic. But from a purely basketball perspective, this was the 6th time that he's coached a team that has thrown away a 3-1 or a 3-2 lead in the playoffs. You know, he's simply in these situations in terms of closing out series, he hasn't got it done. You know, look at how long he's been with the Clippers. They've spent all this money over the years. They've had the Chris Pauls, the Blake Griffins, and then they've got the Kawhi and the Paul Georges. Still never made a conference final. They collapsed against the Houston Rockets team where Josh Smith knocked them out in an elimination game. What does Josh Smith even do now? This is my question is like, Doc Rivers, great. He won a championship in 2008, but you got to look at that as an entire factor of, he had Tom Thibodeau orchestrating that defense there. He was the defensive coordinator for that team. And he's the reason why they had defensive player of the year, Kevin Garnett on that, and veterans like Sam Cassell, James Posey in that locker room. And then before that with Orlando, Jaydee, I'm sorry, but when he won Coach of the Year with Orlando, he finished with a record of 41-41 and was the 9th seed in the East and still won Coach of the Year. And adding to that, he blocked the Orlando Magic from getting Tim Duncan to sign there. So, you know, I don't know, like, I get that he's a great guy and he's got this reputation of being a great coach. But other than 2008, what has he done coaching-wise that gives him this level of prestige when it comes to all of the coaches in the NBA? Because for me, Popovich, Nick Nurse, Spoelstra, Rick Carlisle, he's not on their level. That's just my take on it.
Oh, come on.
But, you know, I'll be interested to see what your perspective is.
You know, look, when I look at all of these great coaches, the coaches that you name, right? Whether it's Rick Carlisle, Greg Popovich, okay, let's take Tim Duncan away from Greg Popovich and let's see. Suddenly this year he can't coach. Suddenly this year, you look at Carlisle. You take away Dirk Nowitzki, you take away these great players. What makes a great coach is a great player. You can be a great coach. Well, how are you going to be a great coach if you don't have the great players to go out there and execute? You know, Doc Rivers has been in this league, and the reason he is a terrific coach is because every single year he finds a way to maximize the talent of his team. Just because, you know, it's very difficult to win in this league, let alone win a championship. And all of these players or all of these coaches, it takes a superior talent, a LeBron James. It takes an Anthony Davis, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson. Pat Riley is a great coach because he had great players, not the other way around. And any coach will tell you, if you want to be great at anything, you got to first look at your talent. This league, they call the NBA, right? We love to debate about this guy's a great strategist. He's a genius. No, you have to find a way to get your team to play and maximize whatever the potential of that team is. Whatever that team is, you can define success however you want to success. But if you want to be a champion, it doesn't like he has what?
It's not like he hasn't had talented players on the roster. that Clippers team. In a team with the Blake Griffin and Chris Paul, they were much better on paper than that Rocket team that beat them from a 3-1 lead in the second round of the Western Conference. You telling me Josh Smith is anywhere near the level of Chris Paul or Blake Griffin? Like, we're talking about this year, Nikola Jokic, as great as he is, he's not Kawhi Leonard. He's not a multiple-time finals MVP. Even with the Celtics, they had Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett. He threw away the 3-2 lead in the 2010 finals, threw away again another lead against the Heat in 2012. Like, it's not like Doc Rivers has been coaching teams with bad players. And with those guys that I mentioned, the Rick Carlisle, he's got Luka Doncic in his second year playing like this. But not only that, he's got guys like, Tim Hardaway Jr. and all of these other role players playing better than they ever have in their life. Eric Spoelstra, look what he's done with the Miami Heat. He hasn't got these mad superstars. Jimmy Butler still isn't on the level of a LeBron James and you're talking about Greg Popovich with Tim Duncan. Look at the last championship that Tim Duncan won with the Spurs. That was just a shell of Tim Duncan's former self. But Greg Popovich found a way to make that team win. So, and they did it up against LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade. So it's not just simply the talent on your roster. Doc Rivers has had talented players on his roster, and he's just simply not got it done.
Wow. I'm just gonna leave that one there.
I'm gonna leave it. And I would love to leave it, but everyone loves to give all of these coaches the credit. But it's obviously playing in this league, it's about the players performing when it's time to perform. And yes, he has had names, like every coach has had names. But when you talk about the best players to play in this league, when you talk about winning at that level, it takes a unique player with a unique talent and a unique skill set. Just because you have a good player on paper doesn't mean that player is the player that will perform when it's time to perform, especially in the playoffs. So you mentioned Jokic. Okay, Jokic right now is doing something we've never seen before. We've never seen a 5-man perform like this at this particular time and play. So suddenly now, because he has Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and we have those names and we've placed the narrative. See, the problem is with all of this is the narrative. The narrative says, well, what we think should happen is different than what will happen. That's why you play the game. This kid, Jokic, what he did this year is expose the entire league, especially in this playoffs this year in the bubble. So now we're looking at the Lakers who, for better or for worse, had the personnel to adapt to a player like Jokic by adjusting and saying, you know what, if we go small, we've seen what this kid Jokic can do. They not only have one, they had two bigs in a league now where everyone's talking about small ball. So we had a player who didn't play in the previous series. We're talking about Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. Suddenly now we go big. So your team has to be constructed. Everyone has to participate in why we win. And then we just can't keep throwing these coaches under the bus. Oh, this guy didn't perform. Oh, this guy, he didn't have the talent. Well, okay, that sounds great. Oh, we want to give Greg Popovich all the credit. Okay, what, he forgot how to coach this year? What happened to Steve Kerr this year? Would these guys just forget how to coach? We always want to give these guys.
Made the playoffs this year with Tyler Zeller at starting center.
All I'm going to say is the end of season review.
Like 6 games. He took the Warriors to 6 games last year.
It's hot. The end of season review. We're going to pick this.
These coaches are like. I mean, it's getting to be like ridiculous. It really is now that. Because now
I thought was ridiculous? Do you know what I thought was really ridiculous? When you're going up against Jokic, the best passing big man we've ever seen, and your strategy is to double team him in Game 7 with players that are smaller than him, like he can't see the entire floor and just throw those dimes all day long. That's what I thought was really ridiculous.
But you have to. What are you going to do? Double him. You have to double.
What are you going to do?
Listen. I know you guys want to dive into this, and this Doc Rivers conversation is going to be one that we have to talk about again at the end of season review. I'm telling you now, because this conversation is not finished at all. Many people, as we were saying, the only reason why we're having this conversation is many people expected the Clippers to be in the finals in this moment right now. But two teams that are actually in the finals are Miami and LA. And naturally, when any NBA Finals is confirmed, immediately the headlines are drawn to LeBron James if he's in it. And I respect that narrative. The return of the king, look, he's coming back to his throne, especially against his former team. I can understand the whole conversation. But gentlemen, I feel like there's another story that's greatly underappreciated, and that is Jimmy Butler's one. If you're unaware of this story, just listen to this for 2 seconds. Jimmy Butler was homeless from 13. He struggled in college until shining in his junior year at Marquette. He then was picked first round by the Chicago Bulls, but last pick in that first round. And not only that, he has worked his butt off. And I say his butt off again to get himself to becoming an NBA star. And now he's on the verge of leading a team to a championship where a lot of GMs feel like he couldn't do it. So my hot take to you, BJ, is I feel like Jimmy Butler deserves this moment.
Yeah, Jimmy should get a lot of credit for the success that's happened. And the reason being is because Jimmy brought in and really changed the culture there in many ways. And when I mean change the culture, he gave this team an identity that really fits the leadership group, right? It takes an entire team, right? The executives, the ownership, the coaches, and the players. Well, they have an identity, and that is defense and toughness. Jimmy embodies that not only on one side of the ball, which we're always talking about defense, but he puts it on the other side. They are going to grind you out day in, day out, game in and game out. And Jimmy embodies all of that. You can see it with Bam. You could see it with the young players, talking about Duncan Robinson and the kid Tyler Hero. And then they brought in some veterans who can complement what they're all trying to do. So I give Jimmy Butler all of the credit because he really came in. And the one thing I want to say about the Miami Heat and the organization, it's very important that your best player, if possible, also can combine with your head coach so that they have the same thought process. Well, when you look at Coach Spo and you look at Jimmy Butler, you see two guys who obviously love the game. They want to play the game in kind of like blue collar, he's a blue collar coach, he's a blue collar player, and they really share similarities in how they approach the game. So I think it's a perfect fit on a lot of different levels, and they have terrific leadership. Udonis Haslem, they have guys rooting for each other when you see their team. So I think this is just a perfect fit. It's a perfect match for Jimmy Butler, perfect match for the Miami Heat, and you can see the way this team responded. They really are going out there playing as a group, and they embody what a team, every team tries to do. But right now, they have it all clicking on all cylinders.
Now, this NBA world holds no punches. So we know if you don't win, there's no sympathy for anybody. But his NBA career has been a rocky one. I saw the struggles in Chicago for a definitive role. We saw the whole fiasco in Minnesota, and that sort of, let's just say how that played out with the Timberwolves and those stars over there. Even being passed on by the 76ers. Ovie has all accumulated to this moment right here for him to prove everybody wrong. Do you agree that this is Jimmy's moment?
I love it. I absolutely love it. You know why? Because I feel like he's an old school kind of player that was just being sort of maybe passed up on, however you want to say it. But, GMs were scared to fool with him because of other players' feelings, because of the newer generation. It's a lot softer. You have to worry about guys' feelings and all that kind of stuff. And he's finally found a fit. And the thing is, he's showing that, okay, that style of leadership, that style of basketball, it can still win. Do you know what I mean? I feel like that team is a team that they beat Boston, not because they're more talented than them. Boston has more talent than Miami, hands down. But they're way tougher than Boston. Mentally, they're a much tougher team. And that's why these guys are now in the NBA Finals. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like he's very deserving of it, man. Because, the reason why it didn't work out on other teams, I feel like now it's showing it wasn't because of Jimmy. It wasn't because of Jimmy. It was maybe just because there wasn't guys around him that were winning kind of players. Do you know what I mean? And he's got that whole team. They're playing basketball the right way. They're sharing the ball. They look like they love playing with each other. And I feel like, just for the sport, it's amazing to watch. It's really amazing to watch because it's not the usual narrative that we've been used to for however long now. That you need this sort of megastar that's just going to go out and score 30 points every night. Like, nah, man. Jimmy's a hell of a player, but it will be someone different on the Miami Heat that will get you every game in a series, and that's what makes them. I feel like that's part of what makes them such a really good squad.
Look, struggle makes you harder, Mo. We already know that. And his 30 for 30 buyer pick is going to be different level. But I come to you and ask you the most important question, and the question that probably Jimmy's asking himself right now. Can Jimmy lead a team to a championship?
If this bubble has taught us anything, in the wise words of Kevin Garnett, anything is possible. And with the way that the Miami Heat have been playing, it's been an absolutely extraordinary run. Whether they win or lose, they should all definitely be proud of themselves. There is definitely potential for them to, cause an upset. I don't think it's likely to happen, but these guys love being the underdogs and they love proving everyone wrong. They're the 5th seed coming out of the Eastern Conference. They've really, like Jimmy especially, has got out of the mud. And for me, the difference with Jimmy Butler is this, right? What makes him different to everyone else is he's not the best shooter in the world. He's not the best passer in the world. He's not the best. The quote is, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And there's nobody in this league that works harder than Jimmy Butler. And the story of him growing up is inspirational. But the thing for me is kind of like a personal story right now is when I first started my journey in the NBA media world, I was working for a news organization in New York. And the first story I ever wrote was about Jimmy Butler. Because in the summer of 2014, him and his friends, they rented an apartment. I think it was in Chicago. And there was no TV. There was no internet. There was nothing in the apartment except for a kitchen and some beds. And all they did was work out. They would go to the gym. They'll come back and rest. They'll go to the gym, come back and rest. They weren't having an off-season of a lot of guys in the NBA you see in Cancun, you see in Cabo, you see them wherever. They'll be chilling with a cocktail in their hand. These guys were putting in work, right? And after that summer, he wins the 2015 Most Improved Player. And that was the year that really elevated him from, the role player that he was on the Bulls to the star that we see before us in our eyes. So all the success in the world for Jimmy Butler is deserved because it's not been handed to him. It's not been given to him. He's not relied on natural abilities. He simply worked harder than everybody else. And that mentality has been passed on to the rest of this team. You see how he's taking the young guys under his wing. You see how he's gelled with the savvy veterans that they've got on the roster. It's completely well-deserved. And this is the thing with why it didn't work out in Minnesota or other places like Philly. With a player like Jimmy Butler, he's not going to flourish with teammates that are extremely talented. He's going to flourish with teammates, regardless of their talent level, but teammates that are willing to work just as hard as him. That's how you gain the respect of a player like Jimmy Butler. You could be the number 1 pick in the draft. You could be able to do a backflip and dunk the ball. You could be able to shoot from halfway line. But that doesn't matter because if you're not putting in the same amount of work as Jimmy, you ain't going to get that same level of team chemistry and that same level of respect. So this Miami Heat team, we all know how extraordinary they are when it comes to the culture that Pat Riley's instilled from the very top. And Jimmy Butler's the embodiment of that. He simply outworked everyone and he deserves his place in the NBA Finals.
I think there's a couple NBA players that would be looking at you right now like, what's wrong with me laying on the beach in my off-season, especially Karl Anthony Towns. Shout out to you, young sir. Yeah? But standing in the way of the Miami Heat, the Los Angeles Lakers, so let's discuss them and their story in Off the Court. Whew. Look, LA, it's a city of angels, right? South Central, Inglewood, Compton, Watts, East Side. Look, we've heard it all. We've appreciated the culture that LA has given us and given the world. But we understand that it's been a tough couple of years. The pain between Kobe and Nipsey has been real. And to think about the opportunity this bubble has given for every neutral, no matter your stance on the Lakers, just appreciate the journey that franchise is on at this moment in time is nothing but great. And one thing that combines the city of LA, well, the majority of it anyway, is the purple and gold Lakers. And they are the heartbeat of that story in the bubble.
The Los Angeles Lakers are back in the NBA Finals. Ever since LeBron James once again decided that he was taking his talents out of Cleveland, this time heading to the West Coast, it's been an inevitability that the franchise who haven't competed for a championship since 2010 would soon be back on top. We don't know what's going to happen over the next week or so, but this title would be huge for the franchise and for its players in a number of ways. First and foremost, there's LeBron James, who named himself the king, but is yet to reach true GOAT status. Winning this year would be his first title since 2016, and more importantly, the 4th of his career, bringing him one step closer to the 6th that Michael Jordan has. He would also likely win his 4th Finals MVP award, which would see him make history as the first NBA player to ever win Finals MVP with 3 different teams. Secondly, the other superstar on the team, Anthony Davis, who was criticized heavily for forcing his way out of New Orleans after spending 7 seasons with the franchise where they built around him. Those 7 years, however, were heavily lacking in success, and winning a championship in his first year with LA would prove to himself that he made the right choice. It could also set the tone for the rest of his career and put his name in the conversation amongst the league's elite. That's the superstars, but this could be a huge moment for the role players on the Lakers roster as well. Think of Dwight Howard, who endured years of finals and conference finals heartbreaks as one of the league's best players, constantly failing to win the big one. He could bow out with that prize championship, and maybe Shaq will even allow him to use the Superman nickname after all. Or there's Rondo, who took a lot of criticism from the fans this season but proved that playoff Rondo was definitely more real than ever as he brought new life to the Lakers title challenge when he returned from surgery in round 2 against Houston. This would be his 2nd ring after winning his first championship with the Boston Celtics, the team that the Lakers are chasing for the most championships in NBA history. Cultural icon J.R. Smith also has the chance to shake off the legacy of that finals moment. Speaking of icons, Alex Caruso will cement himself as social media's favourite player. Danny Green finally gets to prove that he doesn't need Kawhi alongside him. Markieff Morris gets an awkward show and tell at the Morris family Christmas, although his brother Marcus might be a little bit jealous. And last, but by no means least, Kobe Bryant. 2020 has been a heartbreaking year for us all, and Kobe is dearly missed. The Lakers have played some basketball in the bubble that Kobe himself would be proud of, and we're all excited to see where they can take it.
BJ, I just want to echo my brother right there, Mo. I mean, this championship run would mean a lot to Kobe. You're a resident in LA, been adopted by the city, but how much would this championship mean overall to the Lakers as well?
Well, you can see the emphasis, Jaydee, that this team has really put into really trying to hold up the legacy, which is a big legacy and so dearly missed in this city and in the basketball community all around the world. You know, Kobe Bryant meant a lot to a lot of people, as you can see. And I think the Lakers have taken that on. They've taken on, you know, the Mamba mentality. They've taken Kobe Bryant and everything that he's poured in, because he poured his heart and soul into the game of basketball. And you can see with every game, with every moment, that the Lakers are in the moment now. And, you know, I can't think of a greater way to pay tribute, you know, of what this really means to this organization, what Kobe Bryant really meant to this city, and what he means to the basketball community. So it's been incredible to watch, you know, the whole, just talking about it still to this day seems surreal, but you can see that the Lakers franchise is really held on to the legacy, to uphold the legacy of what Kobe Bryant meant to so many people around the world.
To quote the great Kobe Bryant, I'm just going to put it this way: job's not done yet. And that's exactly what the Lakers have been putting out all week. But let's get ourselves ready, because the Lakers are getting themselves ready for the finals. And let's preview this now and post it up. Just before we talk about the finals preview, I just have to bring the fans up to date with your vote. And as you can see right there, Luka Doncic by 0.7% won the best buzzer beater in the bubble. I mean, it was crazy from Luka, in fairness. And I think if I'm going to give credit to Ovie, I think Ovie actually put his prediction on Luka baby to win this one. It was an incredible step back. And like I said before, I'm sure Reggie Jackson is still trying to find himself at this moment in time after getting put in that spiral. But I want to point you to next week, because, ladies and gentlemen, those watching, I'm going to let you know you need to get involved in the Twitter poll that's going to be on the NBA Sports website now as well. You get involved in that Twitter poll. Make your predictions for this. This is the NBA Finals, and this is our schedule here on Sky Sports. Game 1 begins October 1st, 2 a.m. Sky Sports, Miami at LA. And as you can see, the corresponding schedule to follow. Every 48 hours, we'll bring you the best basketball action. And if necessary, after Game 4, we'll maybe go into Game 5, Game 6, and Game 7, with the being the early morning of October the 14th. Could be a 7-game schedule. Could be absolutely anything. Gentlemen, we finally got to where we needed to get to. Yeah. I had to take a deep breath because Bam versus AD is going to be incredible. LeBron versus Jimmy, we built up already. The Heat culture versus Laker Nation. This is everything we have been waiting for. And Ovie, I need to get your response. How are you expecting these finals to go?
I'm not gonna lie, I've been gassing up Jimmy the whole time, but where my broom at? Where my broom at?
Oh my God.
Hey, I picked the Lakers. I picked the Lakers at the beginning of the season. COVID, no COVID. Bubble, no bubble. LeBron James, AD, championship.
Ooh, conclusive.
You know why? Because they haven't even really shown. They still got another level. They're gonna keep on kicking it up. And once they get into that top gear, I just don't think Miami Heat have the horsepower to really keep up.
Mo, I have to ask you then, because you watched the Heat very closely in that Eastern Conference Finals against your Boston Celtics. So
real close.
Knowing
he
how
watched them
good,
real close.
knowing how good this Miami Heat team has been, especially in the bubble, and the standard that they've set. I ask you, what are their chances against the Lakers?
You know, I was watching that Heat Celtics series very close. I mean, I was trying to tune in for a Phoenix Suns game, but they haven't had one in like 2 months, so I couldn't find out on the TV guide. Ovie, hold that, my dog. You can hold that.
Everyone is so petty on this show.
You know, we're going to talk about the Miami Heat. Now, what I'm looking at in this series is what the Heat won that series with was their defense. The defensive schemes they were supposed to drew up were absolutely phenomenal, and it was the zone defense that really gave the Celtics some real problems. Now, the difference between the Celtics and the Lakers is the Lakers have what I will call someone who can bust that zone in terms of Anthony Davis getting onto that nail spot, which is in the middle of the free throw line, where he can get into that spot and operate out of there, making the correct reads, whether it's shooting a jump shot from there, taking it to the hole, or even passing and finding his teammates. They've got players like LeBron James and Rajon Rondo, who are seasoned veterans, who have seen almost anything you could throw at them, whereas the Celtics were a young team. So, you know, I'm expecting the Heat to give them a good fight. But I do think the Lakers will come out with this one, because for me, the Heat, you know, you've got two guys on your lineup on the floor there that are just liabilities defensively. You know, we've seen, as we said earlier, what LeBron did hunting out Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. in those mismatches. If he gets those switches onto Tyler Herro and Duncan Robinson, it's going to be a long night for the Miami Heat. But what they do have, unlike a lot of other teams, is Bam can match up well with Anthony Davis, and Jimmy Butler, Jay Crowder, and Andre Iguodala have all got a lot of experience guarding LeBron James. So, you know, I don't think the series is going to be a complete whitewash with Lakers winning every game by 20. I would be very surprised if that happened. I feel like the Heat can maybe steal a game or two, but definitely, as I said, I've been saying on this show for the whole year that I think the Lakers are going to win this title. So I would be very, very surprised if LeBron James isn't lifting that title at the end of this season.
BJ, Miami will have a lot to say in these finals, no matter what, because the Miami culture is a standard. They compete at every level. That has been set from Alonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway, pushed on to Shaq and D Wade, and now this three-headed monster that they have all around the bubble. I'm just asking you, are we downplaying the Miami Heat and their potential impact they could have for an upset?
Well, you're always downplaying when you come into a situation, because this Miami Heat has proven to be a very dangerous team, and they have exceeded beyond all of our expectations. Now, the thing that I'm most interested coming into this series is, what are the Miami Heat going to do to take away something? Just take away something from the LA Lakers. Because right now, the combination of LeBron James and Anthony Davis, they've kind of steamrolled through the playoffs thus far. You know, Rondo has been a tremendous player for the Lakers because he's added another ball handler to the mix, which allows LeBron James to score and score at a high clip. So I'm looking for the Miami Heat to come out first and foremost is to figure out, what can we take away? I expect the Miami Heat to try to play a lot of zone. Coach Spo knows LeBron James. He understands the game, and I expect him to get into his bag of tricks, because whoever can take away something from the other team gives them an advantage. I think the Miami Heat have enough offense to score because they have shooters. They can play in transition. But most importantly, you know, I think this team could play and score in the last 4 minutes of a ball game. But first, I think what the Coach Spo and staff are going to have to figure out how to do is how to take away something from this LA Laker team. Because if they go exclusively zone, I think the Lakers could settle into a rhythm. I don't think they can match up with LeBron James and Anthony Davis if they play exclusively man-to-man. But if they can junk up the game a little bit, throw the rhythm off of the Lakers, I think it gives them a chance. I'm still picking the Lakers because of their talent, but I think this team is going to compete. And I know with the team that's, led right now by Jimmy Butler and crew, they're going to battle. So I'm not concerned about them playing hard and giving, playing the game tough and doing all the things. I think it should be a good series, and I'm looking forward to it.
Look, we all know LeBron James has an encyclopedia when it comes to basketball knowledge, but I've seen him in the finals struggle against that zone defense before. I hark back to that Dallas series. So I ask, how important is this NBA Finals trip for LeBron's legacy? I'm just leaving that as an open question because I just want to see who harks in first.
I mean, LeBron
James.
What he does.
Go on.
See, there you go. Get them going at the same time.
Go for it, bro. Go for it.
I just wanted to see who was going to jump in first.
I insist. Go for it, brother.
Mo, you've been in every conversation today. Someone else has to talk to you.
I'll be talking buckets, bro. If you ain't got that to say, don't say that.
There's 4 screens. Hey. But anyway, no, I feel like LeBron's going to, he's been here before. He's been waiting to get to the finals. He's at the point in his career where, like BJ, I think he was saying last week, you have Anthony Davis who he can defer to for the 48 minutes throughout the season. But now it's the NBA Finals. I don't think LeBron James is really going to be doing much deferring in the finals. He knows there's 7 more games potentially. And yeah, it's all business. He wasn't about celebrating the conference championship. Leave that for Miami. Leave that for the young Bucks, the guys who haven't been there before. Leave that for AD. He hasn't experienced it before. Cool. LeBron, he's seen it all before. Do you know what I mean? And he knows what it means to be in this situation. And I just can't see LeBron James letting it slip away. And on top of that, even the other guys like we discussed, AD, Dwight Howard. I think they're going to beat them up on the glass. Lakers just pose so many issues. And I don't think Miami have really seen enough of that especially in the East. Like, the East ain't the same like the West. It's not built the same. Anyone can win in the East. Anyone can win out there. The West. BJ, what do they call it? The Wild Wild West. Is that what they call it? The Wild Wild West. The West. The East ain't what it was when you was playing. It's not the same. Yeah. Now it's different. The West, that's where all the real dogs are. That's where the real dogs, But hey, go ahead, Mo.
So there's 2 things. Just going back to Jaydee, what he said about the 2011 Dallas series. LeBron James is not the same player that he was back then. For me, there is 2 phases of LeBron James' career. There's before Game 6 of the 2012 Eastern Conference Finals, and there's after that game, because you all know the meme of LeBron James just giving that death there during that game. That, for me, was when he really flipped the switch and became a killer on the court. That 2011 series, possibly the biggest meltdown we've ever seen from a superstar in this league on the biggest of stages. But, the biggest thing for LeBron James, for me, why I respect him so much, is he's done a fantastic job at overcoming every criticism that anyone's thrown at him. All the things that you could say about LeBron, each year we see him getting stronger and stronger. And, they say it's not about how many times you fall over. It's about how you keep getting up and responding to that once you've fallen. So, he's overcome his obstacles throughout his career, and he's taken all of that experience on board to become, the beast that he is today. And then just for Ovie and, his constant criticism for the Eastern Conference, by default, you're then disrespecting LeBron's record of how many 9 Eastern Conference, 9 NBA Finals in the last 10 years. You're just saying he didn't have to face any competition. You're then disrespecting LeBron James. So if you want to keep harping on about the Eastern Conference being weak, if you want to keep saying the Eastern Conference was weak, you could take away those MVPs from him. You could take away all those finals appearances from him. You just make sure when we're discussing LeBron James, you keep that same energy, because I will be here to remind you about what you've been saying. Just know, don't forget.
We get a chance.
To all the viewers at home, Mo, his team just lost. If you're not aware, he's a Boston fan. He's hot right now. He's a little bit upset.
I'm not mad. I'm not mad. Yo,
everyone's setting him off.
No.
Go watch the show from 2 weeks ago. I predicted Miami to make the finals. I predicted it. I can't be mad about something I predicted.
we'll get a chance to work out if LeBron James can seal his legacy and improve everything that he has built so far in the NBA Finals. But tonight, I want to flip your attention to the WNBA semifinals. The Connecticut Sun go up against the Las Vegas Aces in a winner-takes-all Game 5 showdown. Everything is on the line for that place in the WNBA Finals. Breanna Stewart and the Seattle Storm are waiting eagerly in the finals, and we'll have that live on Sky Sports from tonight, and the finals will be live on Friday as well. Heatcheck promo, we are ready. Look, this one here, I'm telling you, is gonna be interesting. For those that have been there from the beginning, this is the review of everything we have broken down throughout the season. Ovie Soko, Mo Moonsey, BJ Armstrong, you know what time it is, Heatcheck season review, 12:30. Don't worry about the timing, it will be there. Sky Sports YouTube, we'll make sure we'll point you in the right direction here across the final coverage. But tomorrow, you know what time it is. It's the one we've all been waiting for. Game 1. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. This is everything that we have been building up for. All of the bubble, all of the COVID, all of the breaks. It comes down to this. The Miami Heat versus the LA Lakers. We will be ready to bring all the coverage to you from 1:45, Sky Sports Arena and Sky Sports Main Event. BJ will be in the building as well. And if you cannot stay up for that, I've got a surprise for you. Right there and then, 8 a.m., just before you go to work on Thursday, you can watch all of the coverage again, or you can just press record on both. It's up to you. I'm just telling you, you need to make sure you're there to watch everything break down. Gents, we only have one episode of Heatcheck left. This has been sick. I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of clips, especially at the top of the show, that I'm going to put into the archives. I'll make sure Joe does that as well. Look, salute to Ovie, salute to Mo, BJ, you know it's always a pleasure. This is the first NBA Finals where neither team has made the playoffs in the previous season, and now they find themselves in the finals this season. What an incredible storyline, and we're here to break down all the action for you on Sky Sports. I cannot wait. The NBA action is going to be absolutely lit this week.
Sky Sports. Feel it all.